Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. These games were played on board 75. Our man is John C. 77. Against Singh is King 03. As I said, board 75, rating advantage. Well, it's kind of hard to tell. White has gone way up and black has gone way down. Says 1858 for white and 1564 for black. Anyway, we were ahead on the ratings when this started, anywhere from 75 to 150 points. But let's have a look at the games. Okay, we have the King's Indian defense coming up, and so far these moves have been played countless times by players of all rating levels. And here black opts to play a sideline. The main line is e5, okay? Whoops, there we go. That's the main line. But black plays knight a6. And the idea is eventually when this pawn advances, this knight's going to be able to hop into c5. Okay, usually it's going to go to c6 and then find its way back to e7 and support an f5 break. Okay, so let's see what happens. Now here, black opts to secure the bishop pair. In other words, that's white's good bishop, that dark squared bishop. And I've been criticizing the rook pawn moves all throughout this match. Usually, though, it's in a situation where they're playing those moves to keep knights and bishops out of those squares. So let's just, because what's white's going to play is h3 now. Let's back it up slightly. I really don't know what theory is, but sometimes it's okay to do this if you want your bishop on e3 because you want to prevent this move. Okay, so the delicate situation sometimes people have trouble comprehending is when is it good to push a rook pawn and when is it not? Well, it's when you're forsaking development at an early stage, and a lot of these games that I've given examples and I've been throughout this match. If you've been watching and you've seen them all, I've started itemizing them in my article. You can find the link to that from the team match notes. I've been starting to publish individual games where they're doing this, and like I say, there are times when you want to do that if you want to preserve your bishop, but I wouldn't be highly critical of white making that move, although it does weaken the white king side. If he eventually pushes d5, there is a potential sacrifice by this bishop at some point. That's one of the themes of this opening. King's Indian defense is black wants to sacrifice on there. But let me show you just a better idea here for white, okay? Because the number one thing you want to be doing is developing pieces. So here, a simple good move is just put the queen on d2 and be able to take back with the queen, okay? Yeah, you're giving up the bishop pair, but you're developing your pieces. And that's getting your pieces into play is the most important thing. The strategic duel of knight versus bishop is yet to come. And if you're developing your pieces, you're going to be okay. You won't be white will not be losing this game if black grabs that bishop on e3 and white takes back with his queen, okay? But h3 kind of asks for trouble, because immediately what happens is not only does black get the bishop pair, white has double pawns. The e3 pawn is weak. This pawn is weak. There is a potential bishop takes h3 coming, and guess what? It's going to happen, okay? In a few moves. Not yet, but soon. So black has got just about everything he wants. And now the worst piece for black is his dark squared bishop. He immediately activates it and puts it to use. This is going to tie the white queen down. Now the queen's coming up here anyway. Okay, and now black is able to make an exchange and force white to keep double pawns. He can't take back with the pawn because of the pin. So now black is able to access the c5 square for his knight. So now this knight is coming into play. And white doesn't really have much to show in this position. Whereas the board is starting to open up, and those bishops are starting to look a little better. So I think it's safe to say black has a small advantage here. And black keeps developing. And just to show how bad the white position is, now this bishop becomes what we call a tall pawn. A bishop resembles a pawn, except it's a little taller. Now it's serving what a pawn would do. This would be a pawn chain for white, right? Well, there it is. No, very little mobility. Black has the c5 square, has the e5 square. This is looking good for black. Black develops another piece with a threat. And now here's a rook pawn move. Is that a bad idea? Not necessarily. Black intends to at some point vacate the queen side with the king, and he's keeping this knight out of b5 where it could start getting back into play. Okay. Black didn't have to play it. Black could have developed a rook, but not all rook pawn moves are bad. But black has the luxury in this position because he's standing better. White can't really demonstrate anything except develop his pieces. And now queen g5 has a threat. And white creates a counter threat. Now he attacks c7 anyway, so the a6 move could have been wasted in that respect. White found another way to attack c7. You might ask, well, why didn't he play c6 to keep the knight out of both squares? Well, then that weakens d6. So it ties the rook down for a moment, but white misses the boat here and drops his pawn on h3 to a simple tactic, and black has definitely got a clear advantage now and is going to wrap this up shortly as white doesn't see all the potential threats. Probably need to get over here on this rook file. Keep an eye on h2. We'll see what I mean in a moment. Okay, and now black chooses to liquidate his bishop on e6 for that knight, and because it could theoretically come back and defend with knight f4. And now the bishop comes back to g7. As I said earlier, black has the e5 square, and now he's going to use it. And not much white can do here. And now queen h7. Now you can see why a rook on h1 might not have been a bad idea. It's covering h2. And black is winning this no matter what white does. And this just falls right into a quick checkmate. Okay, check. Only one move. Check. Only one move. And then check on h6. And white resigned here because there's only one move. And it's going to lead to checkmate. Look at that. The poor white king has been forced out to the center of the board and trapped. So white never got anything going against black's king's Indian here. He never got any kind of queenside play. Just got a bad pawn structure and gave black some good squares to place his pieces on, and black did just that. Okay, let's look at the other game. And I'll load it up. We wonder what move it's going to start it at, just like we always do. Hey, 2 games in a row. Started at the beginning. Okay, not much happens out of this opening. White chooses a slower line against the Sicilian. The idea is that white wants to centralize his queen, be willing to part with the bishop pair. But black should be equal out of this. No questions asked. Now white needs to give it up. I think probably the best thing to do is take with the bishop. This way the bishop has some activity, and but black opts to take with his pawn, and this allows white to play e5, and now the black queenside center, or black pawn center, is kind of broken up. Black would have liked to have gotten d5 in, but white stopped that. And yeah, but the game's about even. The c6 pawn is a weakness, and that's going to prove critical at 2 stages of this game, as we'll see. And white just continues his development. But, objectively the game's about even. But white's got a little more space, and the fact that black has a bishop over a knight doesn't mean much at all, because what's that bishop doing? The answer is nothing. And white just enjoys a little space advantage, but it's really not enough to win. But black's going to make some decisive mistakes here in a moment, and not just yet. It's still a hotly fought contest, but now white's starting to get the better of it. That's a very powerful outpost on c5. And now the c6 weakness is telling. And what can black really do here? He has to defend that square. And what he opts to do is trade off his active rook for white's passive rook. And there's not really much black can do here. He's in trouble. But as a general rule, in other cases, black doesn't want to trade rooks here because that just develops a white rook. If anything, let white take on d8 and develop the black rook. Okay, so, but this is a common occurrence in games that I see a lot. If you can eliminate this little flaw, your pieces will be better placed, and no use giving your opponent a head start, because now this rook is ready to operate on the open d file, and this rook is still sitting at home. And he moves it to defend, but white's achieved a decisive advantage here. But here, white misses his best move. He should just capture that pawn right now. Knight takes c6, and he's a clear pawn ahead. And instead, white doesn't take it, and this lets black get back in the game, and it becomes very equal again. And let's just back it up and discuss that a little further. Now this just collects this pawn for free. What is black going to do? The knight on c6 is pinned, but for a moment, look, it's got a very nice threat. Okay, it's threatening to go to e7 with check. So let's try to defend this position. Now, white can't move the knight on c6, as I mentioned. It was pinned, but he can move the knight on d6 or c5 rather. Let's try knight e6 check and see if that works. Okay, now let's see. Whenever you move a knight, you always want to plan its escape route. Now, its only escape route is back to c5, so there's nothing making black take this. What if he comes up and attacks the knight? Okay, well, guess what? There's another check. And seems to me like now, well, let's see. Can you play knight takes a5? King e7, come in. Let's see. Maybe you can't do this. King e7, attacking the rook, a double attack on the knight. Let's see. Knight b7. Now, they're strong, but they're weak. They're each protecting each other. This has got to be good for white, I would think. Let's see, bishop e4. No, this has got to be good for white. Black just doesn't have enough threats. Okay, let's just back it up. This is a sample line, and again, by analyzing variations out, you can determine whether your move is good. The more time you spend, the more likely you're going to find the correct move. And I got to find the right spot here. Well, he should have taken on c6, but he didn't. And as I said, the game drifts into more of an equal mode. Black didn't lose a pawn, but the c6 pawn should have fallen, and it didn't. And I think with correct play, black should draw this. But even though the white rook is getting active and is threatening to go behind, going behind the pawn on a5, black should be okay here. Rook a7 should work, but black opts to play a4, and white pushes by. Now he comes by. Now the rook is going into defensive mode, and white's starting to get the better of this. And now black opts for the wrong choice. He sends his king to the king side where it's not doing any good. And white starts pressuring that c pawn. And there's pressure again. The black king was misplaced. It needed to be over to come around and help. Now black is going to lose that c6 pawn this time for sure, and eventually the game. So that would have held. The line I was giving would have held, I think. Instead of pushing a4, put the rook behind. Let's see, put the rook behind the pawn. Okay. Now what about this move? Okay. See, white can attack this pawn, but it'll just advance. Okay. So maybe white tries this move. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do this. Okay. Now white needs to push by. Let's see. If you attack it, a3 comes in. White's a little better here, but I think with correct play, black should draw. Actually, let's back it up slightly. Let's stick with that a4 move for a moment. Now, is white threatening rook a8? Yeah, he is. I'm just trying to find a satisfactory line for black that will hold, because I think black should hold this, even if he drops a pawn. Rook and pawn endings, a pawn down are often drawn, provided you can get your rook active. Well, this rook isn't active. So let's see. I think, well, let's go with what happened and not move the king over. That seemed to make a difference. Let's see. Okay, let's just play h4 just to eliminate the possibility that white might try to come behind this pawn and play g3. How does white make progress here? Well, let's just try g3. Okay, that just eliminates some pawns. Okay, now it's black's move. Let's go attack the rook. Okay. Now where's the rook going to go? Well, it could go here, right? Well, we'll just go attack it again. And I just come over here and threaten a skewer. Okay, well, come back here again. I don't think white's making any progress here. And, the moment white tries to get a passed pawn, it's just going to become a target. Let's see, takes. See, it's a target. And, white can opt to win that a pawn and get an outside passed pawn, but black is doing well here. You can play this, forcing the king back because you can't come up because of a mate. And check. And let's see. If we go too far, you might run into danger over here. So let's see. Let's come back this way. And then just park the rook behind the pawn, and black should draw this comfortably. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. I'll be back soon as I can with another video. Take care.